It looks like the peak of the bell curve is shifting to the bottom of the screen, which we like to see here. And we'll leave it there, and thank you for that. Just before we wrap up, we're going to have the rest of our presenters come back to the screen and just give their final thoughts, both their comments on the poll, but also any take-home message, any final point that they want to leave with you. And in order of appearance, we'll start with Stephen, who was our first speaker. Stephen, any comments on the poll, and what thought would you like to leave us with?
Well, I think it is nice to see that people who, although knew a little now know a fair bit. I think the familiarisation with there are useful tools out there, but thinking through about what sort of tool or evaluation technique is helpful for the actual problem at hand. I think that's the familiar. If you know a fair bit, that's probably where enough in a way, and that we can go ahead with a sector that knows what to ask of economics rather than the other way around.
And David?
I guess I just would emphasise that the sort of economic approach that I presented is a numbers game, and you can get any result out of that depending on how the numbers go. So it can sometimes be tempting to prejudge the result of an economic analysis and say we'd like to support a particular result, but it's usually best not to. It's usually best to go in with a different type of approach and say, well, what do the numbers tell us? So it's a way of being transparent and being, I guess, open and honest about what the numbers really mean for a particular practice.
And Andrew?
Oh, look, I think what we've learned is that economic models are really powerful, but that you just can't pick it off the shelf, that you have to make that investment. You have to really consider the kind of questions that you're asking and the kind of how you're integrating with the community so that the answer makes sense at the end of that process when the numbers add up, that the community can say, yes, we can see how you got to that answer, reflecting David's comments about that community buy-in to coming up with really effective models for decision making.
And a final curveball question, as they'd say in the United States, for you guys. We've just had one come through. It's a bit late in the piece, but it's a great question, so I'll get a brief answer from each of you. How do you cope with tension